In this video, I am going to go over exactly how you can start using Claude Code if you are someone that is extremely non-technical. And I'm going to try to go about explaining kind of the principles in this video in a way that is specifically for people that have never ever used the terminal and have never ever used anything like Claude Code, because that was me a year ago. And so as someone who is in your shoes, I know what that can feel like, and a lot of it is really overwhelming. I remember worrying about a lot of stuff that I didn't need to worry about, and then also not worrying about things that actually were a big concern. And so a lot of it is just, it's tricky to know exactly what to care about and what not to care about, and how to actually start to get started with these tools without kind of getting that analysis paralysis and overthinking. And so in this video, I'm really just going to go over how I use it and kind of the insane unlock I have from it, and how I have come to kind of interpret a lot of what is said around the AI space, and how it's made kind of sense to me as a non-technical person. Because a lot of these words like CLI and .md and .txt and Markdown can just be really, really confusing, and it's not that hard to explain it. Like, Markdown's really easy. These are just type headers or whatever. So anyhow, so that is what we're going to go over in this video. Real quick though, if you do want to follow along, if you've never installed Claude Code, you can go here. I actually have a GitHub repo called Claude Code for Realtors. It's got a bunch of stuff in here, a bunch of prompts that we're going to go over on how to use, SEO auditors, voice processors, all kinds of things. So you can go and download this file if you want, and then it's got a step-by-step instructional on kind of how to get started with Claude Code, all the prerequisites you need, and it kind of goes into explaining them in a way that makes a little bit more sense for like a non-technical person, but still is upfront about what you're doing. So like Node.js, what is it? Why do you need it to install Claude Code? And should you go about installing without it? And no, because to do what you're going to want to do, if you've watched any of the other videos where we're building the websites, we're building all these cool tools, and we're able to deploy and interact with Claude, get the full capabilities, you're going to want things like Node.js and like Brew. So this informational will guide you through that. Also, Claude Code's documentation itself is really, really great for understanding how to install all this. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on installing it. I'm just going to kind of talk about like how it's made sense for me. So CLI is one thing that is super popular recently, and I'm going to pull up a Claude Code instance so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. And every time I want to get started with Claude Code, this is cool. I can kind of put it wherever. And the terminal, guys, all the terminal is, I guess we should probably talk about the terminal. Let's talk about the terminal. So the terminal, what is a terminal versus an AI agent? Well, when you are doing something in the terminal, you are able to, you're basically, the AI is able to actually attach to tools and take action with tools, because this is its native environment. The reason you would use the terminal before AI and stuff would be to interact with your computer purely just like through typing alone. And I guess people would be like wizards with this, and they would just do all kinds of coding matrix type stuff, typing. But Claude does this now, and Claude will do this like this. So like a general user interface, what we're used to looking at is going to be like, we see icons, we click on them, we drag and drop, because we're humans and we need things to be visual. Like for us, all this text just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just like, I don't know what's going on at all. And so for us, it doesn't make sense, but for AI, it makes a lot of sense, because for AI to take a screenshot and always rely on vision analysis, like you guys have probably found out, like every time you generate an image, it takes up a lot of tokens. And so using AI that way is just not realistic long term, and you don't get the massive unlock like you do when you use it in the terminal. And that's why I'm a huge advocate for tools like Claude Code. And so like what you do up here, drag and drop, it would work like this within the terminal. And so yeah, so we talked about that. So you can kind of do all kinds of stuff in the terminal. I'll let you guys watch videos on getting started with that. IDEs. This is like, you'll see videos on like, should I use it in Visual Code Studio? Should I use it in Cursor? Should I use it in Anti-Gravity? Should I just use it in the terminal? Should I use it in the Claude desktop app? Really, guys, I like using it in the terminal because I like to pull up a bunch of different terminal agents and have them all going at the same time and be able to kind of jump between all of them because that's how my mind likes to work. But some people, they like to work with it, kind of like visualize the project and then work with the AI as a coworker. I really like to use my AIs. I like to give them big projects, have them go and do those projects, and then I like to review all the projects in one go. I literally just think of them like employees is how I do. Okay, Markdown, talked about this. It's really like confusing to look at, but the reason it's like this is it's just a clearer way for the AI to have an understanding of kind of like what is important without doing this bold stuff. Because like we can see the bold, but the AI can't see the bold, so it can't necessarily tell sometimes with this, and that can lead to actually sometimes like translation issues. Like this is something being boldened. Often there is a reason for that. Okay. All right, moving on. Next thing is APIs. Really, this is a great way to look at this. I've talked about it in other videos, but this is how the entire internet communicates, is through APIs and HTTP requests, which don't really ask me how they work. It just, for my sake, this tells me that there are a lot of capabilities out there. For example, if I want to build an app, because of HTTP requests, I can build that app in a way to where when I get a lead on that app, I can have it send that HTTP request to Go High Level, my CRM, and I can have that integrated. And what's cool is like I understand that because I started doing the vibe coding stuff a year ago when you had to build all this manually. The reason everybody is saying that there's this huge unlock with AI now is because AI will literally make these for you. You just talk to it in English, and it will create all these connections for you. Now, for your guys' sake, though, I think it's important to know what's possible. It's just like to be like a good contractor, good architect, you gotta be able to have vision. And to have vision, you have to know what all you can and can't do. And so that's why I think understanding the back end of this is important, but you don't need to know how to write this. I would say know how to kind of like read it and understand it if you really want to get into this, but you don't gotta know how to write it. I don't know how to write it. For APIs too, there's a lot of tools out there like Postman that you can integrate directly with Claude that can make testing APIs very, very important, because really the best way to go about building APIs is every API will have its own API documentation. So I can literally go and Loom's API documentation, like Loom the app, they have an API, and then this is their documentation. So you can literally just take the URL for whatever app you're trying to connect to your website or to connect to Claude, and you can just give him that full documentation, and then you're going to need what's called an API key. And this is important, guys. This is very important that you protect these keys and you don't let anybody see these keys. You be very careful with these keys, because really a good way to look at it is it's like kind of like a credit card number. If someone gets a hold of this key and a hold of your Anthropic, if you're say your Anthropic API key, if someone got a hold of that, they could go and charge and use up all your credits without any additional verification or anything like that. So, okay, let's talk about scripts and repositories. So, like, you'll hear like people say like, "Oh, I ran this script in Claude Code. Oh, create the script," or Python. Like, you'll hear a lot of people talk about Python. I didn't know what Python was and kind of what all the differences between all the codes were. The only thing to note about Python, and I don't really know anything about it, but it is good at automation. So N8N, Go High Level, those automation tools, those are all Python on the back end. And Python, they built out, I guess, all these libraries and components to make it easy to build out automations in Python. And so because of how easy it is to use Python, Claude Code uses Python to do all kinds of really unique stuff that you wouldn't even think about. So, for example, this Python script that I have, fetch YouTube transcripts, is literally a script that Claude will run. So I can put repositories. You'll hear about that a lot. And that's kind of like what I showed you guys in the beginning of this. So this has got like a README, which is really just for like people to read like instructions on how to use this thing. And then it's got individual files. And then within these files, there's all types of different types of files. So you have all these Markdown files, which are really just like prompts that I have on here, and then there is like a configuration thing that he made so that this can be loaded into all the prompts, and it can instantly know your name, your brokerage, without you having to tell it. And so all this stuff, right? Like like Claude Code made this, and then it lives on GitHub, and the entire thing is called a repository. And there's public repositories and private repositories. And so if you have a personal website or something like that you don't want necessarily anybody to get access to, then you would make it a private repository. You can still give individual people access to it. But if you have stuff like this that you just want to share with anyone, like I want to share with anyone, you can just make it public, and then they can take the link and go download it, clone it, tweak it. And so what's cool about this is you can literally go take this repository and then take all the prompts that I have made, like this content repurposer prompt, this customer response, email writer, SEO auditor, YouTube to blog, voice processor, all these prompts, and then this README that explains kind of how they work. And you can tweak them and make them according to you. And this kind of what's cool about this community and why it can speed run just even setting this stuff up to just go and look at what people have already built. For example, I'll show you guys one example. So while we're in plugins, there are a lot of plugins that are deployed. Like there's 177 on here, and I wouldn't go and load all of these in, because when you load all these in, you take away from the specialist and you create a generalist. And really what we want is we want a lot of specialists, and then we want generalists that are able to push problems to specialists. And so to do that, you really want to watch where you install these. Some of these you might want to install on the project level and just keep them in that project. Other ones you might want to install them in the user level. They might be something that you use a ton. Like for me, my user ones, let me look here. Yeah, like the specialized domain for research, the code review, front-end design plugin. And these are all actually a lot of these are the ones built by Claude, the agent SDK. So these ones are the ones that I'm using a lot, but for me, these are huge. So I have them at the user level. Okay. I think that was everything there on repositories. Hope that made sense. Claude.md. Really, guys, Claude makes this for you. But if you're ever having like problems where Claude is just doing the same thing over and over again, always good to check Claude.md. It's kind of like the permanent instructions for how he operates across the board. And so anything you put here, he's going to apply to everything. Okay, we talked about skills, we talked about plugins, which is great. Let's talk about kind of some of the things you can do here. So if you're in bypass permissions, to turn that on, you have to exit Claude, you have to start a new instance, and you have to literally put Claude -- dangerously skip permissions. And this just means that he is never going to ask for permission from me, but he's also not going to just go and work on other stuff without me telling him. Sometimes he gets distracted, like he'll find a problem and be like, oh, I should take care of that problem. Oh, and then that problem led to that other problem. And then next thing you know, he's working on fixing problems when I asked him to just help post the blog. And so it's still important to just kind of keep tabs on them, check in on them every now and then. But I probably check in on each one every 20 or so minutes, but I will have multiples going at a time. So I might, I might have one do like, can you go and see if any changes have been made to those 2 GitHub repos that I wanted to put up for free? So I could send something like that. And then I might also like think of another task, because this is what I like about Claude Code, is while that guy is going on that, I can pop over another one. And I like to do like the different themes to kind of just keep track of like different ones. Like that's how kind of my mind works, and they don't all blend together. And then I'll go in this one. I might only go Claude on that one. And that way, actually I have it set up. I recently set it up so that it always bypasses permissions for me, because I just do it so often. Which I forgot to undo for the purpose of making this video. But anyhow, so that's why it's still on for me. But you can shift through that with Shift Tab, and you can go between plan mode and accept edits mode. And plan mode is really, really awesome if you guys are getting started, because this will really help you also understand kind of what the capabilities of Claude are, because he'll really work with you. He'll ask you questions. I always like to say act as an expert. And then I also sometimes like to say like spin up 2 plans, one for getting all the initial context you need to help you put together your plan. And so I might have him use the specialized domain agents to research like what are the best APIs for this idea that we have before we put together the full plan for building the idea. And so that is how I like to use it. Now slash command, so you get that, and then you can interrupt Claude by hitting escape. You can also send him like follow-up things. You can, like, if he's working on one thing, you can send him like a follow-up task. Hey, after that, do this. And I'll just even tell him, like, I'll say, hey, are you working on the right thing, or are you checking the right project? And he'll respond to me without like totally going off track of what he was working on. And then he'll go back to what he's working on. But one thing that is cool that they made, because you do risk every time you send him something, you do risk throwing him off what he's doing. So they made this recent thing where you can do the slash commands, which we'll get into. You can do slash by the way, and then you can just ask your question, and without him pausing his task, he'll actually answer your question on the side and keep what's going on going, which is really, really cool. Now, okay, so slash commands, so you got a bunch here. This is how you can also access any individual plugins. You can compact is really the main ones, compact, clear, and you can also just type them out, which is what I normally do. Clear is a big one that I use because context is going to be the next most important thing that you guys are just going to start to find that you are keeping like not having enough of, unfortunately, which is kind of funny. Okay, permissions, undo, and what's safe. Claude wants to create files. With create things, with running commands, that's where I always like to tell people in the beginning, like, do be cautious with read things generally, unless there's something private that you really don't want AI to see. I just kind of say yes to everything. But then whenever I see the words write, edit, or Claude wants to run this shell or bash command, or wants to run this Python script, then I'll kind of look at it or pay attention in the beginning when you're kind of getting used to this, just so that you are kind of aware. But as you build out this and as you start to use him as an employee, like, trust kind of builds just like as if like it would with a real employee, which is really funny. You start to kind of trust him with more and more stuff on your computer, which is why I just wouldn't let it overwhelm you in the beginning. But yeah, guys, I think that is everything.